Hi lefties! So you've picked your yarn, you've picked your needles, you've picked your pattern, and now it's time to cast on. Let me show you how to do that as a lefty. First of all, what do I mean by casting on? I mean getting those first set of stitches onto your needles so you can knit from there. Here I've cast on 10 stitches, and that's what we're going to work toward in this video. Now when I talk about the tail of the yarn, I mean it's the loose end of the yarn that has an end, as opposed to the working end of the yarn, which is actually attached to the rest of the ball. So let me get that ball out of the way. Let me take these off the needle and let me show you how I did it. Unwrap. All right, it all starts with a slip knot, and I'm going to place that slip knot, I don't know, maybe 12 inches from the end of the yarn. So to make a slip knot, you just make a loop and you bring another loop through it from the back. Tighten it just a little bit, not too snug, and there you have your slip knot. Make sure that the opening is large enough to fit both needles through, as that's the first step in casting on. All right, so you take both sets of needles in your left hand. Today I happen to be using a set of circular needles, but it works the same way with a set of straights. Hold the needles in your left hand, pick up the slip knot in your right, and just put the needles through the slip knot. Now, there is a checkpoint here. You have to make sure that when you pick up the tail of the yarn, it's kind of on top, and the working yarn that goes back to the ball is below. So that's what I've got here. This is the tail, you can see the end. And I'm just gonna snug it up a little bit. All right. To hold the yarn, you're going to grab the yarn, both strings of it, in your bottom 3 fingers, pinky ring middle, not too tightly, don't make yourself crazy, just nice and snug. And you're gonna take your thumb and your pointer finger and you're gonna put them between the 2 strands of yarn. It's really important to make sure that the strand of yarn that's over your thumb is the tail end, and the strand of yarn that's over your pointer finger is the working yarn, which we just checked and made sure that it was. So you separate your thumb and your pointer finger, give yourself a nice open space in what I call the diamond, which is your resting position between each cast on stitch. So needles in your left hand, you've got the diamond in your right hand, and you're ready to go. I like to rotate my right hand away from me, bringing my thumb up a little bit, just so I can see what's going on down here. It gives me a better bird's eye view, and it might be helpful for you as well. So to get started casting on, you're going to take both needles, you're going to bring them towards your body, and you're going to scoop them up in that loop by your thumb. Then you're going to move those needles, bringing the yarn with them, across into that triangle that's been created with the top by your pointer finger. Come up from behind, and then bring those needles right back through the loop by your thumb. Once you've passed your thumb twice, you know you're safe to drop your thumb out and use it to pull the tail end towards you, just snugging up that stitch. So here's the slip knot stitch. Here's the first stitch we've cast on, and we're going to do 8 more. I'll take you through it again. Bring the needles towards you and up the loop by your thumb, back across toward that triangle with your pointer finger, come into the triangle from the back, and then come straight back through the hole where your thumb is. We've passed the thumb the second time, drop the thumb out, tighten it up. I'll show you again. Needles towards you, up the loop by your thumb, across to the triangle by your pointer, enter that triangle from the back, and then straight back through the loop by your thumb, drop your thumb out, tighten it up. We're on stitch number 4. Again, needles towards you, then up the loop by your thumb, across to the triangle, enter that triangle from the back, and then come right back through your thumb and drop the loop. So now that's 5 stitches, and I'll do the next 5 without talking you through it, because sometimes when I watch YouTube videos, it's just easier to watch than to try to watch, listen, interpret, and understand. So let me just straighten those out. And here we go. Number 6. Number 7, I'm going to reposition my hand. Number 8. Number 9. Number 10. Now, if you're doing it properly, when you bring the needles toward you to start with that first coming under through the loop by your thumb, you're gonna feel the yarn that's over your pointer finger, the working yarn, which is the yarn that's attached to the ball. You're gonna feel it slide towards you. So you wanna make sure that you're leaving enough tension in your hand to keep everything nice and taut, but you're not gripping so tightly here that you can't slide the yarn. I'm just going to show you what that sliding motion looks like. It's pretty simple, and you can control that easily with the tension in your fingers down here. So we've cast on 10 stitches. Let's double check. Can't tell you how many times I've lost track of counting while I've been casting on. So I always double check my cast on numbers, not once, but twice. It's a little painful, but trust me, it'll save you. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Great. I'm not going to double count 10 stitches twice. So we've cast on 10 stitches. Then what you'll do is you'll just take one needle out while holding the opposite side of the other needle so you don't accidentally lose the whole thing. And there you have it. 10 cast on stitches ready to go. So the next thing you need to ask yourself is, when you get started, how long should that tail be? How do I know how long the tail should be for what my pattern's calling for? And sometimes you can play chicken, and that's a bit of a guessing game, and you'll learn that lesson pretty quickly that playing chicken isn't the way to go. You actually want to do a little bit of math, right? I can't give you the exact ratio of 10 stitches is this many inches for every yarn, because it has to do with how thick the yarn is, how thick the needles are. But I can tell you, if I were working with this yarn and these needles, how I'd go about figuring how much of a tail I actually need for the project I'm working on. So we know that we just cast on 10 stitches. Let's take the stitches off, find that loop. Just gently pull them apart. Don't pull so tightly that you lose the slip knot, right? There's a slip knot. So I would measure this length, right? The length from the slip knot to the end. And I know that I used that length of yarn to cast on my 10 stitches. Now, if you remember, I didn't use the full length of yarn because there definitely was a tail when I got started. You always want to round up generously. Better you should cut a little bit of yarn if your tail is way too long after you've cast on, than have to rip out 200 or 300 cast on stitches and start again. So I know that I cast on 10 stitches for this length of yarn. So I would just use that ratio to calculate how much length I needed for any number of stitches. So let's just say that my pattern called for 20 stitches. I would use double this length of yarn for my cast on. Or let's just say that my pattern called for 200 stitches. I would use that proportion more of yarn for my cast on. And there you have it, the long tail cast on as knit by a lefty.